Um, so yeah, glad to be connected and glad we're finding the time. Um, let's see. Well, look, I see a lot of these.
Mhm.
It makes sense. It's very in the zeitgeist right now. Especially like I feel like there's been like an economic renaissance, let's say, in the
Yeah,
last like however many years, 5, 3, but especially last 2 and 1 and all this other stuff happening. So it's definitely very timely, and I do think there's a big market opportunity. I've seen the need validated on many levels. For instance, my TV show, that focused on people of color in business, like just the fact that it got picked up, and to begin with, and put like maybe $5-10 million behind it is validation. The fact that Harlem Capital raised money is validation. All these diversity focused funds is validation. Um, so I think the need is there. What I haven't seen pulled off successfully is like um, a a resonant enough uh, product or value proposition to
mhm.
get people to use something like this,
Sure.
right? So here's what I mean, right? Like, yeah, we want our networks to be black owned, but like, Facebook is at scale, Instagram is at scale, and trying to recreate something like that for just black is going to be tough because that's what people say they want, but that's not what people want, in my opinion. Like,
I
no,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
you may disagree. I don't think people want
No,
that.
no, listen
I
to me.
think,
I agree with you. No, I don't disagree. I think the way you said it is, people say that's what they want, but at the end of the day, that's not what they want when it really comes down to it. I will say though, just for clarification, Bean seeks to be more. I guess Bean is really more or less focused on the economic piece and
yep,
not
yep,
just trying to create another social network.
yep.
So
I'm clear on
that
that. Hmm.
okay, fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Clear, totally clear on that. But just generally, right? Because I hear a lot of people say like, "Yo, they'll want to create the same exact thing, but for black folks," and then, I think they're disappointed when they see that, people do and say differently. I think sometimes,
Yeah,
like people will say, "Oh, I'm concerned about privacy," but then you give your biometrics to an iPhone because it's convenient to log in. So those kinds of
right,
things.
right.
So then I think this is my personal assessment. The reason that I think something hasn't really caught on in this space is because the feature set for the initial product has been too broad.
Okay.
So searching to be, like a economic resource is one thing, but I think honing in on a really specific, like the most mission critical feature set of that initial product, I think will greatly improve Bean's odds, right?
Yeah,
Because it's not that this can't be done. I think at the contrary, I think it's a hard problem, right? But
right,
it's a really meaningful problem. And,
right.
obviously we know like on the other side of meaningful problems is, just meaningful upside and value and opportunity. And like when I think of Harlem Capital, right? This is why I'm careful to make the nuance that I'm not dissuading or discouraging. Because when we went to market, people told us, hey, raising funds, but just for black people, just like I'm telling you, we essentially sought to do the same thing. And there was a trail of dead funds behind us that tried and just didn't.
Yeah,
Um, and it was something about the way that we went to market that really enabled us to be successful. In our particular case, we realized like the prior funds were trying to, raise money from all black people for all black people. And then also the types of practitioners were not financially very sophisticated and
yeah,
technical. And we were having the benefit where our team really had a private equity background. So we had the disposition and the connections and the network to, I think, for the first time, it seems, come across in a way that seemed to demand institutional respect or
right.
respect from the institutional asset class. And so it was the same thing that people were doing, but we had just enough core competencies and strength that we were able to hone that allowed us to, eventually when we got our first $1 million check, that was kind of the domino effect that allowed other bigger players to kind of come on board, and it took a long time, but we
Yeah.
got there. And so when I think of the opportunity for Bean, I think the same thing. I think, you know, what is and so this, I guess my question for you, have you thought through what could be that initial, um, product? Look, I think I have a sense of what the product, that you envision is, but I
Mhm.
mean, it's almost like what's the product within the product, right? Like,
Well,
I
I have
think that this has the potential to work if it's a specific need that you address. Like, yo, as an example, this is probably wrong, but like, hey, get a micro loan. Like Bean helps you get a micro loan,
Mhm.
right? Like a quick low interest loan for Black businesses, let's say. You could
Right,
argue that that's a lending platform, that's not what you wanna be, but I guess my thought process is, can you create a Trojan horse
right,
where you sneak into the market with a specific, like, use case, right?
right.
Because the reason I think a lot of these platforms haven't taken off is because they stay nebulous. It's okay to have, like, a grand vision, but then
Yeah,
their product attempts to manifest the long-term vision in the V1, and then it
yeah,
ends up having a really diluted kinda use case, and then you already know it's really hard to get someone to change their behaviors and download a new app and then even use it, and then if it's not super clear what it's for,
right,
you lose them.
right.
Versus if we had that, like, to run with that example of, like, get a microloan, then
Yeah,
it's like a super clear promise that you can work to fulfill,
yep.
and then you're building brand because you're fulfilling that promise, and then people are like,
Right.
"Yo,
I
yeah,
like that.
I
That-
fuck with Bean."
That's
They're
that's
they're
dope. Can I pull up one thing to show you the thing that I think is really unique?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
let's see. I guess I just click present now. Okay, your entire screen.
Yeah, yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
cool. Let's see here. Um, okay. Well, okay, boom, there we go. Cool. All right, let's see. One sec. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Let me see. Yes, I can.
All right, so let's see here. Okay. So you can see my mouse moving around.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this thing here that's behind this here, it's called the Bean Bank. And one of the things that I see, one of the ideas we're kicking around is something called an affiliate bean, so that Bean would curate opportunities with like a micro loan, as you mentioned, or um, let's say, Supercent, or these different individuals have their own makeup companies and different opportunities where we can sort of curate opportunities for uh, individuals, users that are looking for ways to earn income, things like that. But
Mhm.
essentially, by collecting the beans of these different brands, organizations, um, they're able to, especially like let's say on the affiliate side, generate revenue. But I guess one sort of offshoot from that is that in terms of the economic reciprocity, we're just working through if we're able to show um, the amount of money that companies are reinvesting or spending with our community, it gives us an opportunity to judge or determine whether or not um, we want to engage with them economically.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and
mhm.
so and then
That's
there
cool.
are other aspects
Yeah,
to
that's
it.
cool, I like it.
I can have the John Henry bean, and if I have your bean, then I'm getting access to maybe exclusive talks or what have you. But I feel like the bean bank is the thing that is probably the most unique thing that we have that
That's the
isn't just
secret sauce. So so
and
then so then, um, so do I buy those or how does that work?
So, depending on their functionality and the features that they offer, you would be able to buy them. But at this time, they're free, and they serve different purposes. So, for instance, like let's say if someone has the Morehouse bean, then okay, I knew they went to Morehouse. Morehouse can have a streamlined communication with them because I have the Morehouse bean. If I have the Target bean, all of their coupons, offers, etc. can be just pushed right there. I don't have to have all these, let's say, different apps if I have their actual bean. So their bean will compose of maybe the top 4 things that someone does on their site. And I can access it
and
through the
then
bean.
is that sourced by you? Like is this an outbound thing, or can you scrape the web and kind of
So yeah, so part of it we would sort of initially, as much as we can, like, scrape the web and populate this data until it's all organic. But yeah, that's
I understand. I like it. I think the bean bank is cool. I think you need to refine the use case still a little bit,
yeah,
because I get the value prop, and I think that this works at scale. Right. But we have to figure out what works not at scale. So for instance, like, Target and all these other businesses, they'll be able to attract Black customers because they have Black affinity, since they have beans in the bean bank, and people can see. That's the basic value prop, right? Where the Black community can more or less understand whom is supporting the Black community via whatever beans you prescribe them, right?
right. Yeah.
Right. So I like it. How I like it. I see some, it's tricky, because then it's a chicken and egg thing, where it's like, then in order to for the value proposition to be robust enough for you to navigate those corporate approvals, then you need volume on the
Sure.
platform.
Sure.
Right. And then you know how it is. Like, then without the stores, then it's hard to get volume. So
Right.
you're playing a different game. You're playing the, get a lot of download and usage on the application,
Right.
in order to create some of that, momentum that gets corporates to sign up, and then it starts working. But
Right.
I don't know what your core competencies are, right? Like, if it was a growth hacking team that's like, yo, we're good at making shit pop and go viral, and like, right now with the current climate, I think it's a good environment to do that kind of stuff and get some content that kind of pops, and then whatever.
Yeah.
So there's that. Like, the cool thing about VCs, like, I've seen enough businesses to know that, really there are so many approaches that can work, and it's really dependent on the team and their core competency. Like,
Yeah.
we invested in a team that does consumer products. I was a little skeptical, but they're just fucking arbitrage monsters. They
Yeah.
sell international. They went against my gut on everything consumer. They don't care about brand. They're just Facebook ads machines. They just do arbitrage, and that's all they're good at. They're all science, no art. And I
Wow.
was reluctant, but they're doing $400K a month. They're our most successful portco at Harlem Capital. So
Wow.
I think so then I think it's more about, you having that conversation with yourself, where it's like, okay, what core competency do I feel like me and then my immediate network around me are, specifically best equipped to, execute on.
Right.
So, and that still fits that brand promise that you're all about, right?
Sure.
Because I think that your brand promise, the reason people resonate with it is because it's very resonant. It's very resonant. It's very timely. It's very needed.
Yeah.
And then the beanbag, I think, can be tweaked a little bit. Like, maybe it doesn't have to be about corporates, showing their badge of support for the Black community. Maybe.
Well, okay, go ahead. But that's only one aspect. But continue though. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. And then the Morehouse Bank, the Bean Bank, stuff like. I'll put it this way: can we find the bean that matters the most in the bean bank? And then slim it down, because right now there's so much possibility. This is my assessment. There's so much possibility that I think a new user comes on and like might get a little bit overwhelmed and not have a clear enough desired, like a clear enough path that you as the founder and the product person have to guide them to the clearest bean that matters the most, and like it's more or less easy for them to get, or you gamify it and then it's fun to get. One of the two, right? And so then the bean bank, which by the way, I think is awesome. It's a great term. It's catchy, bean bank, and it also fits with bean. And I love what bean stands for.
Mm.
And I like the branding a lot. And you know, we just have to play with the like when I think of apps, I think that they're so hard to get people to download. But when you get people to download it, if it fills that need,
Yeah.
like you're in,
Right.
right? And I want the promise to be so clear that
Yeah.
people know exactly what I want you to take it from the nebulous to like a very, very crystallized and clear thing that you can like reliably fulfill every time.
I love it. Hang
Does
on
that
one
make
second.
sense?
Oh no, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, perfect
And
sense.
and and now to expound upon it, you have a tremendous core competency. Like you've been able to tap federal grants. Like you are you're an entrepreneur of color. You have equity. So I'm just curious. What are some beans that we can create around
Yeah.
that? And I love that. Like the more I think about it, the more I say it. The bean bank. I love it. Um, it's so cool because it gives you the flexibility to create different beans around. You can like create a bean per specific application or
What
specific
now?
product. So it
Yeah.
kind of gives you some unlimited type of experimentation, but within the confine of like the bean bank,
Exactly.
right? So like, can you create beans for federal monies? Or I'm just gonna go crazy here with my thoughts, but like as an example, beans for some accessible PPP money, which I know
Mhm.
you're not in the States presently, but that was a big fucking deal here. And like very few businesses of color got the triple P's.
Right.
So maybe like that is a something that you can help folks navigate via the bean bank in a way. Does that make sense?
No. What you're saying is it's spot on. Like it's amazing.
Mhm,
Dude. Like
mhm, mhm.
so yeah, and it doesn't matter of moments. You you put it all together and beyond. So no,
Yeah,
you're on. Yeah, I perfect sense.
yeah, yep. And so, good.
Well, well, so these are the along the lines that we're thinking in terms of, like you're saying, whether it's SBA. So I'm with you. I don't have anything to add to it. It's
Yeah,
really
and so then I love building upon it, right? Because then you have this brand that's so relevant and timely, and like for me, like I think as a marketer, and I think like what's a bean or two that we can create, ideally one to start, and then you can experiment. That's why I love it. It's like bean, you can have a few beans that you experiment with, and it's almost like, so years ago I spent several $1,000s just running ads on my own page. I was not selling anything, but I was honing messaging, and I was
mm,
creating Facebook ads, and I was targeting a certain audience. It was,
yeah,
Black entrepreneur, people that are interested in entrepreneur and this age group, and and
yeah,
Black. And it was a magic ad. Like I saw when an ad took off because the price per impression dropped to 0.0002 pennies. And,
wow,
the click-through rate was really high. And so that's what we call the magic ad. I just like experimented with a lot of creative, and I found one that worked, and I killed all
yeah,
the other ones, and I just doubled down on that one. And
wow,
so I think there's a similar opportunity here where it's like, okay, you know, the Black community is looking for, that economic power. You might have seen
right,
my Twitter rant slash, I went on Instagram and was just posting a bunch of stuff around like economic power and how, what have you. And,
yep,
and I wonder what bean we can create that is the promise that you'll see people most directly resonate with, right? Like we can have some guesses, but I would love for the market to speak, right?
and I'm taking notes. Just one second here. Yeah, I'm
Yep.
sorry. Yep.
Yep. So for instance, like Magic Johnson announced this $100 million loan like he's funding $100 million worth of loans for, small business owners. There might be a number of those, right? And
Right.
and then your bean might be something that they like, the promise of that bean is like, hey, get your business funded with PPP, like specifically for minority entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
That just as a marketer, and now I'm thinking just purely as a marketer, like that's gonna work.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have people like now then we back into that. Like, can we fulfill that? And then how? And that's the work of the entrepreneur. But like
Sure.
what makes things work is like a delightful experience. Like I almost want it to be fucking magic. Like they
Right.
go on Bean, they click a fucking bean on the bean bank, and like they're immediately connected to anyone and everyone that's offering, monies, PPP money, replacement type of things for
Sure.
minority entrepreneurs. And like they click it and then they fill out your application. And then just by pressing submit, you automatically populate, the applications of all the programs out there. I'm
Right.
making this up. Might not be might not be the vision you had, but I'm just saying like
No,
that would
listen,
work. You would
absolutely.
get, yeah, you would
I
get a
don't
huge amount of leads on that.
I don't care how we get there. In other words, I don't care how we get there, man.
I
Like
love it. I love
I,
that.
I just want to get there. I mean, my
Mhm.
pride has long been dead over this thing. Like, um, I want to get there, man, because we need it. Like I said, man, I'm living in Medellin right now, and the Afro community here is strong.
Hmm.
However, they again, like I said, face some of the same challenges. So actually, and worse because they don't have the economic strength that we have in the States.
Sure.
And so no, I've definitely kicked those things around, and this is just more or less confirmation in terms of execute, like really narrowing this thing down and
Yes.
finding the one or two things
Yes.
that they can put their hands on. We can expand later. Um,
Exactly. So then the vision, I want you to keep that vision. Hey, this is the Black affinity, African dad. Keep that affinity. This is what we're about in vision, because that's what's gonna move people
right,
emotionally. It's gonna
right,
get people to resonate. And I want you to build brand around that by producing content around that and speaking about that. And like you're using content as a Trojan horse to generate, audience, which you
right.
nurture with that content. And then you're dropping in your beans. Hey, this like and mind you, I'm speaking with forgive me because I'm speaking within the context of the States. I'm not as like aware as like what would maybe resonate in Colombia, let's say.
Yep.
But like, and examples of things that would work here is like get your business funded, or get get low interest loans for home ownership. Like, because people, the equity piece, I can tell just based on my own feed from the things that I post,
Yep.
the equity piece is really, really resonant.
Yeah.
People want to build equity. People want to build their business. Like that economic empowerment thing is there. And if
Yeah.
you can find specific one-line promises that you can make
Yeah.
with a bean, and then then the hard work is like, okay, how do I make that bean fulfill the promise where people
Right.
log in?
Right.
And it's the promise will be, it'll be working when people are willing to overcome the pain of signing up for something for that gain,
Yeah.
right? Like the friction is worth overcoming because the promise is there. And by the way, don't get too hung up on product. Like, yeah, the product can always be smoother, UI, UX, what have you. But I've found that people will sign up for something even if the UI, UX is clunky,
Okay.
if the promise is worth it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then just fulfilling on the promise on the basic level will be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Ah, man.
So I think you're in a great spot, man. I think you're in a great spot. The great thing is that this has the tremendous ability to, this is highly scalable.
Sure.
This you can operate from Medellin or in Bogota, anywhere in Colombia. It's timely, it's needed. And yeah, that's what I want you to work on. I really want you to work on, you know, the vision is there. I don't think you change it. I think you refine the vision so you can have a one-liner that,
Sure.
like when I joined Harlem Capital, it was like to opportunistically invest in underrepresented and produce great returns for investors. And I was like, scratch that.
Yeah.
Change the face of entrepreneurship. And
Yeah.
immediately we saw people go, oh, like,
Yeah.
and then I added the invest in 1,000 diverse founders over the next 20 years, just a piece
Right.
that people had the repeatability, right?
Right. Right.
So work on that in the vision, but then with the specific problem, it will help you because people will know exactly what they're going on there for, and you'll know exactly how to message and what to build the product to do, right?
Yeah.
So using that PPP loan as an example, you know, just that is an immense help. And that will get, as an example, I can see that getting a lot of earned media in the States where Black enterprise will share, you know,
Right.
meet the app, like use the app that will plug you into all the Black available money right now. People
Wow.
go, you sign up for one fucking thing on Bean, you press send, plugs you
Right.
into all the other things automatically because you built the integration, let's say, into these other applications, which, you know, could probably be a somewhat simple task, dev wise. I'm talking out of my ass. I don't know, but because I'm not sure
Yeah.
where they're hosted, but it would be something like that. Um, also, um, then the cool thing is, you know, you have them on Bean, and then you can begin offering beans, you know, that are in that same spirit, and then they unlock them, let's say, by like, you know, you just through a push, like you know, you can say when a new bean's available, let's
Well, if you're
say.
spending too much money within the community, that whole kind of piece,
Sure,
and
right,
you
like
what have you.
right, exactly. You could exactly. So then, so it's almost like what's that core promise that you can use to just get people on?
Mhm.
Use it. The value is so great that they're willing to, you know, go through it, sign up. Um, and then you have them from there. You could experiment doing this even off an app if you wanted. It could be a web play where, you know, they go to Bean, let's say it's bean.com. It's probably not, but let's say they go to bean.com slash, you know, Black PPP.
Right.
And, you know, you use that as almost like as a lead gen if you wanted to reduce the friction even for that initial value prop. So
Yep.
that will build your mailing list. It won't build your downloads. You can experiment with it. You know you'll have leaks, right? Because not
Right.
everyone's going to download, even if it's awesome. A certain percentage
Right.
of people aren't going to download because they just don't like to download it. Um, so you can play with it. But yeah, man, I think that ends up being it. Um, so I'm excited for it. I think you try that. That email that I sent you to schedule me, that's my direct line. So
Okay.
I want, you know, like as you refine it,
Yeah.
use me as a resource. And then what I'll commit to doing is um as you hone it, if you ever want to test messaging, I
Yeah.
can share it on my platform.
Okay.
And that's another thing that we didn't even get into, but there are a bunch of entrepreneurs similar to myself
Uh-huh.
that have the perfect audience for you.
Yeah.
Like my audience would all be your customers,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so there's other pages like that. Earn Your Leisure is one.
Right.
Blacker Pockets is another.
Yeah.
Black Wealth Renaissance is another. Entrepreneurs Like Me, there's another one. Anthony Frazier, Gerard Adams. Like the really nice thing about what you're doing is that there exists already an influencer and slash page network that
Yep.
have a highly engaged audience. Like my audience is bananas engaged
Yeah.
relative to my size.
There are. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so if you can find a way to insert yourself somehow into those
Yeah.
feeds. By the way,
Yeah.
I used you know, when I was starting out, use a software called Boostgram that just like auto engaged. Like it just went to the follow, it went and engaged with the followers of pages similar to me
Hmm.
and just like you know, it auto engages on your behalf. Like
Hmm.
it'll like their photos and shit like that. And then people will be
Yeah.
like, oh, who's this? And then they'll click through. And then if your page has the right bio and the right promise on there and vision and whatever, people will follow you back. So
Yeah.
that's probably how I built my first 5, 10,000 folks.
Nice.
Um, so which will be important because audience will be your lab. It'll be like your sandbox. Once you have a decent size audience, small, but it's enough for you to test your messaging and your beans and things like that. So,
Wow.
um, so yeah, man, I love it. I love it.
Look, man, I will tell you too. I appreciate you offering this. You know, I appreciate you offering this. I saw something that you put together in New York, and I think you had like it was like a dinner or something, and
Mhm.
it was really cool to see how excited you were about everyone else's success at that table,
Mm.
and I feel like that's what really pulled me in because I feel like there is a lot of competition, a lot of self hatred, and you don't really find guys even doing this call. I mean, I've wasted $100 on bad meals with people that I got nothing out of. So it's like nothing, you know what I mean?
Facts.
And just to take these calls and to do this is pretty dope. So
No, that's awesome,
definitely,
man. That means a lot. That means a lot for real. And I love the community that we're building, man. And I think you have a great tool that can tap that and deliver great value.
Yeah.
And the more valuable the promises that, you know, Bean can set up to deliver, I think like you're just going to have network effects
Yeah.
because the community is so locked in on this right now
Right.
that you have the potential to be something that people are just like, yo, you got to use this.
Right.
And, you know, it really spreads. So so it's there, man. But hey, I appreciate your comments and I love being connected, man. So please do drop me a line at any time. And you know, part of my being late. But you know, we made up for it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Hit me anytime.
Okay.
Peace.
All right. Take care.